Hi, 6th grade. We're starting to talk about data and how to collect and display our data. So we're going to be talking about tables and charts and graphs and how to best show a representation of the data that we've collected. We're going to start off by talking about frequency tables. Frequency is how often an event occurs, so how often something happens. So when we make a frequency table, we want to show how often something happens, an event. So a frequency table is going to organize data into categories to show the frequency of each. So a table that shows us how many times something will happen or something has happened. Make sure you have this definition down in your notes. Pause if you need to. And let's start looking at some examples. When we make a frequency table, it's going to kind of be like Papa John's Pizza Day. When we have Papa John's Pizza Day at school, I have to take a tally of how many people want cheese, how many people want pepperoni, and how many people want veggie. So what I do is I call for cheese. I make a tally. 2 people want cheese. A couple more want pepperoni. I've always got that one veggie eater. Go back, a couple more people have decided they want cheese. I've got a couple more pepperoni eaters and one more veggie eater. After I've taken my tally for each type of pizza, I total my tally. And that gives me the frequency that each pizza is chosen. So I had 4 people choose cheese, 6 people choose pepperoni, and 2 people choose veggie. This is the same idea, what I do at lunch count, that we're going to do when we make a frequency table. So let's get started and look at a math example. St. Rita's soccer team is going to score the following numbers of goals at their games. I'm making some predictions here for the season. So I've listed all of their games and how many goals that they score at each. We're going to turn this into a frequency table. So we're looking at how many times do they just score 1 goal? How many times do they score 2? How many times do they score 5 goals? First thing that we want to do is we want to look at the high number and the low number. So our high number is going to be 5. Our low number is going to be 1. That tells me the range that our frequency table needs to be. So high is 5, low is 1. Those numbers are going to help me create my frequency table. Let's look at how I do that. Okay. I'm going to start off by drawing a chart, and I'm going to title my chart. These are St. Rita soccer goals. Okay. The first column in my chart is going to be the number of goals. The second column in my chart is going to be my tally. The third column is going to be my frequency. And my last column is going to be something called cumulative frequency. Cumulative frequency. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But let's go ahead. We know that our lowest number of goals scored was 1, and our highest was 5. Now I'm going to start taking my tally. I like to cross out my scores as I take my tally. That way I know that I've used them. So I'm going to cross out 2, put a tally mark. 3, tally. 1, 2, 2, 5, 4, 5, 3, 2, 2. Notice that when I get to 5, I make that 5th line a diagonal line. That way I can see easily that those are 5 tally marks. 3, 4, and 4. For frequency, I'm going to count up my tally marks. So I've got 1, 5, 3, 3, and 2. Now I can easily see that the score that St. Rita most often got, the number of goals that St. Rita most often got, was 2. There was a frequency of 5. The goals that they least likely got were 1 goal, frequency of only 1. Let's look at our cumulative frequency now. To get the cumulative frequency, I'm going to add up the frequencies as I go along. So let me show you what I mean. On the first row, I just have a 1. On the second row, I'm going to take the 1 plus that 5 for a total of 6. I'm going to take that 6 plus my 3 for a total of 9. Oops, didn't quite get my pen back. For a total of 9. I'm going to take the 9 plus the next 3 for a total of 12, and take the 2 and add that to my 12 for a total of 14. That tells me that there were 14 games that I collected the scores for. Okay? And the frequency of goals scored. So the cumulative frequency is a running total of the frequency. I'm adding up as I go. Okay? Let's go ahead and look at another example. We all know that this year's Super Bowl was a romp. The Broncos, my team, lost horribly. But we're not going to focus on that. We're going to look at the scores for the last 20 years. So I collected the margins of victory. Margin of victory is how much the winning team won by. So I subtracted the winning score minus the losing score and got the margin of victory. So I went through the last 20 years of Super Bowl scores and figured out how much the winning team won by. And these are those amounts. We're going to put these into a frequency table. So again, the first thing that we want to do is we want to look at our high and our low. Our high, unfortunately, was the Broncos' loss of 35. Our low, we had several years where the team won by only 3 points. So this is a huge amount of data. Okay? We don't want the rows in our frequency table to go from 3 to 35. That's too many rows. It becomes overwhelming. So we want to break this into groups. We want to break this into ranges. So let's say we're going to do 1 to 40 as our overall range. We can divide it into about 4 sections of data. So we can divide our data into tens. Let me show you how we're going to do that. First, we're going to start off, we'll title Margin of Victory for Super Bowls. Always have to have a title. First column is going to be margin. The second column is going to be our tally. The third column is going to be our frequency. And the fourth column is going to be our cumulative frequency. Okay? Now my range was 3 to 35, so I'm going to break my margins into groups of 10. So I'm going to say 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, or 31 to 40. So we're going to group our data into ranges. I start off with my tally. 35, 3, 4, 6, 14, 4, 3, 12, 11, 3, 3, 27, 3, 27, 7, 15, 7, 14, 10, and 23. So now I'm going to add up my frequencies. I've got 5, 10, 11, 5, 3, and 1. To get my cumulative frequency, remember I'm going to add them as we go. So I've got 11, 16, 19, and 20. And I know that I should come up with 20 at the end because I had 20 pieces of data. I had 20 years of Super Bowl victories. So what can we tell from this? Well, one thing that we can tell is that usually Super Bowls are going to be very close. Okay? Most frequently, we have a very narrow margin of victory. Unfortunately, this year, not so much. Poor Broncos. Okay? What else can we tell from the frequency table? Okay? We can also tell that all of the larger margins of victory don't add up to the smaller margin of victory. So we're much more likely to have a small margin of victory. How could this help you make a prediction about next year's Super Bowl? Probably if you looked at this frequency table, you would decide that next year's Super Bowl is going to have a small margin of victory, unlike this year's Super Bowl. So frequency tables can help us see patterns, they can help us make predictions, and help us forecast future events. We'll do some examples in class. Thanks for watching.